excited. I am just so pleased that Eva agreed to kick us off in September with this presentation. I'm really impressed with the high tech we've developed for this presentation. Eva, I met actually through your gallery. She owns a beautiful gallery in Carnegie called Firebox. It caters primarily to female artists, and it's from 2017 you opened?
Yeah.
But I happened to look up Eva's entire bio thinking, oh, I'm going to introduce her because I don't really know her as a painter and gallery owner. And I came out with pages. I said, wow, I could talk about Eva's bio as long as it be allotted for her to do a demo. But I will just be brief. She's an amazing colorist, and she paints. She does encaustic here. She's here tonight to talk about her encaustic artwork with the wax. But she is originally from Jonestown, so she's a local. She went to Temple and has a degree in fine arts. But she's done everything from being currently as well an exhibiting artist. She's in the PSA. She's in AAP. She is an art teacher. She has traveled globally and led missions in all Africa, Europe, Asia. So very, very impressive experiences that she translates to her artwork, which I think is really, really neat.
That's my problem. You said translator. I thought, wait, I need a translator.
Come on. So with that, I'm just going to let her explain everything. But again, thank you for coming, and I'm excited.
Sweet. Thank you. Thank you, Kim and Debbie, and all of you, Jim. And it's really nice to be here, so I appreciate it. It's nice if you want to come forward, that would be great, but you don't have to. I understand the need to have to leave if you, if you need to leave. So I'm going to talk about process, especially encaustic, which is what I've primarily worked in for maybe 15 years. But I think, in order to talk about our processes, we have to talk about the process of our own, of our own selves and how we arrived at the physical processes. So just to give you a little background, and she said it, I went to Tyler School of Art, which is Temple University's art school, ages ago. And I grew up in a family of artists, so for me it wasn't, I just knew I was going to go to art school. My sister's a visual artist, my brother's a writer, and they're older than me. I have another brother who is actually the computers, but he had a little hard time dealing with the fact that he wasn't an artist, but usually it's the other way around. So anyway, going to art school was what I was going to do, but prior to going to art school, it was around the time I was 17. My dad I love my family, and so I hate to sum people up and I'm like, oh, he was this. But my dad, had been an alcoholic in spite of a lot of wonderful things. He had been an alcoholic during my growing up. So I was 17, and he had tried to commit suicide, and this was before going off to college. So he had tried to commit suicide and was, at the end of himself in several ways, and with the alcoholism. And I think he was really struggling with trying to find help in that regard. He didn't believe in God. My mom was Catholic, so I have this Italian Catholic family with a dad who's also Italian and an atheist, which is very interesting. So anyway, all that to say, before I went to art school, for me when I was 17, and it wasn't just my father, who was a huge authority figure. He just passed away 2 weeks ago. So anyway, it's a little significant. But at the time, I was going through some things, and it was a breaking point in my life. And I had gone to Catholic church, and it wasn't about religion for me, and nor any of my artwork is about religion. I'm not saying anything negative or good or anything about religion, but in terms of the one thing, when I was that age, I just said, God, I know the Bible says that you are love, that God is love. I want that. I don't want religion. I want that. And my life started to change. And for me at that point, there was significant growth in God and who, a spiritual dimension that was about relationships. it with God who is love. And it's always been and always will be a process in growing. And so, and it was also, and why I'm saying this, it was affecting, my dad was going through significant changes, which of course hit me in my changes. And my father then, he went to AA, and that became his really a foundation for him. So that whole principle of surrendering to your higher power, I saw that in my dad's life as something working. And I just can say that has a lot to do with all of those formation things for me in terms of relationship with God, who's maker, and says he is love. Those are forming things, and they're we have language. I feel like, a poet has the form of poetry and books to write, and I have materials, whether they be wax or oil paint, and we all talk about, of course, we're communicating different things. So for me, in terms of, like the missions involvement and art has always been this weaving an expression of course, something deeper, which I know it is for most of us, and it comes out in all kinds of colorful ways, and black and white, which I love. But, so anyway, going to art school, there were some big significant changes. Tyler School of Art, I was a painting major there. I loved Tyler. Tyler was fantastic at the time, and I think it's good again, reputation-wise, what I hear. And so that was, that was a profound experience. I had a BFA in painting, drawings, and sculpture. And so I do like to sculpt, I like mixed media, but I primarily paint. So out of Tyler, I went into missions. I did some summer things. They were always creative. I would find creative missions kind of groups. Youth with Mission was one of the main ones for me that I worked with them different times in my life. And did a lot of, I did a lot of dance with them, and then I did a creative ministries department with them. So in sort of faith zones, I would do like creativity, and then sort of more secular art zones, I find myself, kind of more talking about God. Just telling you what I find to be happening. But I met my husband in Youth with a Mission, and we were missionaries with Youth with a Mission for a while. And we came out of Youth with a Mission. I was an art teacher in Philadelphia for a while, and I loved doing that. And then we came to this area. My family's in Johnstown. His family's from Greensburg, to start a family and raise our family. When my kids were young, I started doing much more studio, kind of when you're teaching in school. So, your creativity is all engaged, of course, in other people's creativity. So anyway, here, my kids were young, I was doing studio art, and started painting, and showed at La Fawn Gallery, and Gallery Chiz, and then Hot, which is not a gallery, but they used to sell it in my work years ago. Anyway, some different galleries. I mean, mostly, because I was raising my family, and my husband and I were raising my family, our family, mostly showing in the area. Few shows outside the area, but I found that difficult. It's just not a challenge. So that's when I really focused. I was painting oils primarily, or acrylic paints with oil bar on top of that. And kind of going back and forth. I would say the most influential art movement in relationship to the work I was making then was probably German Expressionism. And, and I just was very impressed, learning about German Expressionism and how, color was like their intense color palette was something they were expressing the culture and its deeper angst and evil, really. And so they take a normal scene and they paint, and this, but they paint a normal scene and they communicate with this crazy intense color. I like that. That resonates with me. Like, say something. And say something more. What are we saying spiritually? What are we saying about the culture? And so color for me has always been like the constant. And so, but my compositions for, I think, a number of years were really, as much as it was expressionistic, I think they were really, I don't want to say contrived, but they were very busy. So, and I would say I like that. I can be very drawn to getting sort of attentive about pattern. I like that very much. But then I was stuck in it, and I found myself sort of really stuck in complex compositions, but then of course, introducing a lot of color in those compositions. I did a lot of, I don't have any of that work, but I did a lot of vessels, like just kind of, they were almost surreal in a bizarre way. Vessels and guitars and instruments that were significant to like voices of people, or, you know, so they were sort of metaphors too. But complex compositions to some extent. And I wanted to get free in my artwork, and I had trouble actually getting free in my artwork. And I mean, I don't know if you know, if everybody experiences that, but I had trouble being, you know, just really free and you know, without line, without shape, and liking it. I mean, I can make a mess on a paper, but not like it. So anyway, and then I found this medium, encaustic. And encaustic, it's a wax-based paint. And I'm going to show you more and tell you more about like the recipes for encaustic that I use and that I found to use. But at the time, and this was about 15 years ago when I started primarily working with encaustic. And by the way, right now, the past year I have bursitis from scraping so much with razor blades, which you do. So I started working with oils again. And I've been working with oils all year. But I'll still go back to encaustic. But so anyway, at the time, about 15 years ago, I didn't see it in Pittsburgh. You know, encaustic painting, and I only found out what it was. My sister's an artist; she's in New York City, and I was at her home, and a friend of hers had a painting that she gave to her, and it was an encaustic painting. And I just thought, oh, isn't that interesting? It had such a it has this celestial kind of quality to it, and a depth in the, you know, there's something different about the paint, and it literally is different than paint, so I'll explain that a little more. But I like that mystery. It has a sense of mystery. So I started working with encaustic, and in fact, it was very hard to work with, so I found a freedom in losing all the composition, because it takes sort of over you as much as you take over it. It's a hot wax process. So we can, oh, that's me.
You are visual.
Yeah, so, and this is a big painting. And this is probably, maybe about 50 inches wide, this was. This sold, I don't have this, so 50 inches by like 30, you know, so it's pretty big, and very big for an encaustic painting. It's a lot of process, it's a lot of heat, it's a lot of wax. So this was, I think, it was one of the first big paintings I did.
So what is that on?
This is, thank you, yes, it's on a wood panel, and it has to be hardwood. And this is the hardwood panel, and what's nice is, I used to make them, actually this was on, this, before I found these around, and I didn't know to order them online. This was on a panel door, it was a door. It was a hollow core door, but a solid wood one. Which is, so encaustic has to be done on a solid wood surface, which is birch, I believe, or beech. Which one? Somebody knows what? Birch. Birch. Yeah, beech would be. So and I'm sure there's other hardwood ones, but I think most of, now I get them, thank you, encausticos, and actually Art Supply, now I'm not cutting apart doors anymore. You know, it's like, you know, and we all do that, you go through this like you're inventing the wheel. But at the time it was like I felt, you know, I had to invent the wheel, and I was working big, so when I would see encaustic paintings, I love them, because they lend to little intimate kind of things, but I didn't see anything huge, and I was used to working big, so I wanted to work big. So hollow core doors at Home Depot or Lowe's is where I go, and cut them apart, and then, you know, finish the ends with more hardwood. And then also with encaustic, and, you know, I'll go back and forth, I guess, with talking about the process and the photo thing, see? But this is not, it looks like gesso, but it's an encaustic gesso. So it's very different than a regular gesso, I think the polymer has acrylic in it. That does not. So you can't substitute one for the other. And still, it's like encaustic ourselves are working on that. And so they can charge a whole lot of money. But that is what it is. And, you know, there might be another brand. I think there is. I don't think it's, I mean, R&F does encaustic things too, and Craftsman Supply is great. Like, they have their own boards now that work for encaustic. So
When
anyway,
when you were using the doors, what,
Yeah.
did you make your own mixture then that you put over?
no, I found that encausticos was around, but I
Oh, that
just
was
ordered,
already
I ordered
around.
that online. But you know, with their paints at the time, and I still think for the most part, their paints are pretty tiny. I mean, you can get blocks of it, but if you're working this large, it's real expensive for a tiny little, you know, and I go through a lot, I make a lot of paint, and I go through a lot of paint when, you know, for the most part when I'm working, large. So yeah, so they, I mean, they're still wonderful, and their paints are like beautiful. But I make the paint, and I'll show you that recipe. And since I started making it at that time, I just always continued to make it. But especially if you're gonna work large. If you're gonna work small, and you know, again, the Craftsman Supply Store, I mean, it's a great way. You can get the small, beautiful little encaustic paints and the boards and go from there. And now they come jet set. Woohoo! Anyway, so and what worked for me too is the medium, and this is aimed for, this is the start of, and I'll talk about that process. That's encaustic. Encaustic takes mixed media very well. A lot of my paintings actually most of the ones I have on here are just paintings. But when I do mixed media work, I work and think differently, like we all tend to do. And I often do, I do a series of angels at Christmas, but they take this wax, it takes mixed media so well and remains archival. So it's really great in that regard too. If you like to work with mixed media, you want to incorporate whether it's gold leaf or fabric, I mean, you can incorporate just about anything in encaustic, including clay, and it's a beautiful surface for clay. But I haven't used it on clay, but I know that clay artists that use encaustic for a surface, which I think would be really pretty
How
beautiful.
many layers do you wind up with?
Yeah, now that's, I mean, it's part of it, so much of the beauty of it for me and the frustration is it's a lot about layering encaustic. So it is, and I can't tell you how many this is, and this is not done either. I just brought one that was sort of a messy process. I paint the sides of mine, and not always black, often black, and then I tape it, and then, and now people I think this dripping is beautiful, and a lot of people just let that run over and drip. And I had this conversation with somebody the other day about husbands and how they influence your work. I think I'd be a real different artist. I'd be real messy. But he likes things real neat. So anyway, and so it ends up influencing me. And you're thinking, okay, you're a mortgage banker, I'm the artist, stay in your lane, and then you find yourself doing just what he told you to do. Anyway, but it's good balance. So no, so when I put tape to keep a clean edge, now the tape is on, I have clear duct tape on there, so I would rip that off. After this is all done, I'd rip that off, and I sometimes have to touch up, you know, but certainly you can let the beauty of, and I'll be like, oh, I want that, because you'll be letting yours drip over. Anyway, so layer-wise, it's multiple layers, and that's what's, you know, it's very different. It's a painting medium. But I think it's much more of a three-dimensional medium. And so if you think of colored glass and you're looking at colored glass, you're looking through it, which is so beautiful. Like it has a depth to it because it's three-dimensional but translucent. And though this is two-dimensional, it really is three-dimensional. There's multiple layers. And you're now here, you know, I have a it's coated with a wax on it. You can see how cloudy that is? So I have a bit of the wax medium. I shouldn't just say wax. It's the wax medium, which I'll show you in a bit. But I have a bit of that on top, so that makes it sort of a cloudy, opaque surface. And you can mess with how opaque the paint is and how translucent it is. And these are hard to tell. Well, this one you can tell maybe a little bit, maybe not with the light. But like this, you know, obviously it looks a little more opaque and it sits on the surface. And then I have some colors that I'll put more medium than pigment, and I'll talk about that in a minute. In a few minutes. I keep saying I'll talk about stuff, just remind me. Anyway, so but you see the yellow, of course, I mean but that has a good bit, now yellows tend to be more translucent, but this one has a good bit of medium in it, so it's much more see-through than, like this, I popped this, you know, with much more paint, as much paint as I can go. Now you can't, I color with paint, and I was talking with somebody, we were talking about you can color with pigments, or with the powder pigment. Yeah, and I did that when I started, and I thought, no, don't do that, Eva. You're like that sloppy person, so don't do that. Because really, you should have a mask when you're doing that. So I pretty much, that's when I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Because I was like, mad scientist, keep forgetting this is poison. So I put that aside, no more of that, and I have worked. And then it becomes natural because I work with oil paints anyway. So I'm coloring the medium with oils, and then in that too, it's more oil paint, but you can't go more than 50% oil paint. The majority has to stay at medium for the chemical strength of the paint. It is a more fragile paint. So as far as for me, in terms of the mystery, I mean, and this looks much different in person, but maybe I'm going to turn this around too, because I just think color-wise, this is a little more accurate in person. And
let's try it. I mean, we might plunge everybody into darkness, but I mean, it really does show you the color.
Yeah. And some of my images,
why
I
we do
think,
this.
might have been a little more low resolution. I'm not even sure. This is surface of the deep. And, and I think, for me, along with what I was saying in terms of communication and faith, it's like at the very beginning of the Bible, it says the Spirit of God hovered over the surface of the deep and said, let there be light. And hovering, I like this word in Hebrew. In English, it's just move, but hover in Hebrew is a brooding, birthing. It's got a passionate character to it. And only, the Hebrew language is pretty beautiful like that. So, but if you look at that word hover, and it's like, oh my God, wait a minute. The Spirit of God, this is in creation, hovering over the surface of the deep. He's passionate over, he's not just doing. I mean, even we're artists, and we tap into more easily, a passion. And of course, then the rest of the culture, but there's still so much doing about creating, whether it's art or other things. There's so much of a mechanical doing. And I think, how beautiful is it to see in Hebrew, the Spirit of God over the surface of the deep, which is actually boho and tohu, and those words are chaos and emptiness. And I love that. It's like, the Spirit of God who's loving over what is chaotic and empty. And that throws, for me, that throws religion, who I have nothing against, but it throws it into, just throws it in the water. Because it's like, religion sometimes, or man's ways, we think, oh, I have to do, whether it's ABC at church to get better or to know God, or it's a nirvana state that I have to reach. I don't care what religion is. We tend to feel like we have to achieve and do all these things to attain God's love. But yet you see in the very beginning, it's like the Spirit of God hovered, loved, brooded what was chaos, over chaos. So I think, well, shoot, he can manage my messed up life. And he wants me right where I am, So I mean, for me, that in saying that, when he says, let there be light. So in that chaotic state, or he says, let there be order. And there was, and it was good, So in that is this essence of creativity that I find continual renewal or desire renewal in terms of my painting, whether they go on, completely different subjects, whatever the subject be. But I think for me in encaustic, it's sort of because I can't control it, So I was like, okay, that works for me because I can't control anything. So surface of the deep, and now I remember. I'm gonna move to this quicker. I will. And this is light breaks, similar. And I had this one at my house.
I love that one.
Thank you. And I'll let you see one on here because I think they do come up on there a little more true to. This is reflection. And so they're sort of about creation, or and they're often they're abstract, and they can become more abstract, seascapes or dreamscapes. I had to think what that was. Resonance. This has metallic in it, which is again you can kind of put anything in the medium, And, and you can't see it on this, but it's flecked with metallic. But I don't have these anymore, these sold. This one I have, it's collision. A little more abstract. This one's huge, and this one's in my office. Somebody bought it, and you have to come pick it up, so it's in my office. But I did a couple that were really large like this. But I'm trying to think of the size. This was bigger than the first one, so it was like 50, maybe it was like 56, or it was close to 5 feet. It must have been more than 5 feet wide. 60 is 5 feet. I have to, it takes me a few seconds. So maybe it was about 5 feet wide, 3 feet high, or could have been more than 5 feet, because it's, yeah. Anyway, I can't remember the size. Could have written it down, but I don't care. It's just big. That's wisdom. Oh, see, I told you I'd go fast now. That's wisdom speaks. So these are all, out of a similar pool in my head.
I love the red cheese.
The red, it's the wax really does, intensify the color. And I think because you see a depth of it, too, you're looking through maybe one layer into a deeper layer. But you can get some just really, and it has a bit of gloss, which I'll show you. You can control a lot with the chemicals you can add to it, with certain waxes that you add to it. And the shine is one of the things you can control. I typically, and I'll talk about it when I turn this off, but I typically use the same recipe because it kind of works for me. And then because you can really mess stuff up, and then it's like if I sell something that I just experimented and then 2 years later it cracks and falls off the board, and it's not a good thing. So I just want to make sure that the recipe is sound, So in terms of my recipe for the medium, I keep that pretty consistent, and then adding to it, I'll add a lot of different materials to it. But most of my big paintings are really strictly paintings. Oh, was that the last one? No. Oh,
Where's my favorite?
oh wait, I think I. Oh. Do you have one?
Detected.
I don't know how I got there. I think I skipped. Exit. There's gotta be an exit. Oh, look at you. Okay, good. Yeah, somewhere there. Yeah, so continuum, that sold. And this one I did this within the past probably 7 months. And it was in the newspaper actually, because there was a gallery right up in the newspaper, and it was in the newspaper, and somebody came in from Wexford? No. Anyway, his wife came in, he had a paper under his arm, and he wanted to buy the painting. I was like, well, that's great. I want to see it because I was standing in front of it in the paper. But yeah, that's the one piece that we like. So yeah, this one is really pretty large too. This one I scraped down so many times. I hated this one for weeks. And often, you know what I mean, because you scrape and you rework, and a lot of it, I mean, you can plan, certainly, but with the way I work, I have ideas and I'll plan some basic things, and inevitably, they all get trashed. And because it moves. It's like working with hot wax and fire. So it moves, and
If
so.
you scrape it down, then can you reuse what you're scraping
Yes.
off to make different colors then?
Yeah, you can. And a lot of times, I mean, similar to oil painting, if I scrape down a lot, I mean, it tends to turn to, like, I'll have a lot of colors mixing. So I'll end up with a lot of, like, puke green sort of thing. Which I like trying to make a painting out of. But, yeah, so but you can constantly reheat it and reuse it. And it is, it's a fragile surface. It's more fragile in certain ways than an oil painting or acrylic because you can scratch it. Though it has, and I'll show you that, it has a varnish in it, so it's paint, it's not just wax. But it's, if I were to take my nails to it, it would scratch. But different than oil and acrylic, it's archival in terms of color, and they say 500 years, the colors of encaustic will last. So the color, and I think, paints are all evolving, and it's always a chemistry thing that is beyond me, but some can lose, like if they're in the sun, obviously, over years, they'll lose their exact color. But the Greeks actually were known for using encaustic paint. So it's a contemporary medium, but it's an old medium. And they actually started it, I had read that they used it to seal up their boats, and then they started adding pigment to it. And then they found it to be decorative, so they were decorating their boats, and then they're decorating all sorts of things, I guess. So it's been around a long time, but there's also a lot of chemicals. Now, this is, like I said, mixed media. I work differently I did a series of churches. So one thing, besides just adding things to it, and you can draw on it, I brought some oil bars, and probably a lot of you work with oil bars. Oil bars work great with it. But this is a photo transfer. And so it's a digital photo, and with an acetone chemical, and you can transfer it right onto the wax. It's also a fragile process, and they can be turn out completely terrible. So I don't do a lot of that. What I like about this process too, and I will keep this. I do these on small works. I did a combination of bigger that I hand painted, and on top of it, like with oils, because you can work with oils on it. So I did oils and some oil bar and a photo transfer, acetone transfer, but I don't have a picture of that. That was a commission. But for the most part, these smaller works, I'll do mixed media, and I'll add all kinds of things, and I do a lot of these acetone transfers. And what I do like about that is there's a sense of age always about them, because they won't transfer perfectly. So they'll have this sense of they're worn, because they're going to be somewhat of a broken image. Sometimes it turns out great, sometimes, oh, it's the face, it's totally not there, and then it's a bust. But, I've done a series of churches, and this is one of them. This is a photo I took in Guatemala, and it's called Guatemalan Ruins. And so they had a big earthquake in Antigua, Guatemala. So you see a lot of beautiful ruins in Antigua. So that was the church in Antigua. And this is a church in Shadyside. That's President, is it on 3rd? It's right on 5th. But like on your way to PCA, on the left side. So is that First Presbyterian Church? I get them mixed up. There's a bunch right there, but it's the one on the left side. And so that one is called Restore. So that is also an example. And that was I think that was like 18 by 24. So that's not tiny. And I think that's also the same church, and that's Return. And so the yellow in this too, yellow in encaustic is really fun. And you can have several white layers in the background, and then you start to take yellow over it, and it can really have such a luminous quality because of the white light behind the yellows. It's kind of a huge setup when I start working, regardless if it's small or large. But I'm going to show you some of those things. Now, if you would buy, I can take this one out. Oh, I have two in there. If you buy these, like if you buy encaustic paint from Encausticos or whatever company, you'll get them, in little rectangular things. So what I make though, I'll put lots of these kinds of cans, which I got at a tree supply, like a baking and party supply store, some strip. And I don't know the name of it, but they've got lots of these. So I'll put these on a hot plate, or hot plates, or any of those plug-in things that get hot. And I plug it in. And your working temperature is going to be around 200. So, or it can be 210. If it goes too high, it's very toxic and it smokes. So you'll see, if you see it smoking, hold your breath, turn it down, and get out. Get the hell out of Dodge. It's bad. Anyway, so you want to keep it an even temperature, and that's what, my hot plates have the temperature gauges on them. And so these are wonderful because it's kind of it keeps it like they're painting pots. They turn to liquid completely, and some of these, they're not popping out of here. And I just wanted to show you the brushes I work with. They will stay encaustic brushes for life because they're not getting cleaned by anything. When you heat up to a certain color, they get trashed quick. I use a lot of cheap brushes. They're also, you know, I'll use good brushes that I trash, and I'm like, oh good, that's an encaustic brush. So, anyway, some of them though, you'll see like the hairs, just like in a painting too, but even more so, you know, you see it sticking to the paint. So you want to get, I don't want to go over time. So anyway, so brushes stay in the encaustic medium. It all gets hot. The paintbrushes start to really move. They, you know, you wouldn't think that they had hard wax on them because they're wet with hot wax. And hot wax, when I say that, it is this, and I can pass this around. This is the beeswax. And now this, and you can pass around just to see it, it's beeswax, which you've probably seen. This is, I think they call them pistils. It's a French word, and I'm totally tearing it up. So, and this is the refined, which is white. And I think they just send it through a bit of a bleach process. Now I use both. There's the unrefined, which is just like, you know, beautiful. It's like the yellow, the regular natural beeswax. And that's really nice too. And it's sometimes intentionally what you might want, you know, especially if you wanted to have an age about it. But I do use both, and for a while I was just using the natural. I like this because my colors stay pure. So in working with a lot of color, you know, you kind of want this to stay out of the way in terms of color. So I often use the refined beeswax, and then this is fun stuff. This is varnish. Who knew? This is called, it's DeMar varnish, and I used to get Utrecht brand because I used to shop at Utrecht, no more existing here, but now it's Art Supply sells these, and these are wonderful. I mean, you know, they have a whole big rack of encaustic waxes and mediums and recipe kind of things. So this is DeMar resin, and it comes, it's a crystal, it's a tree sap is what it is. And I can pass that around. It looks like a rock. Oh, it's all over. So it's all broken up in pieces, and it's a little dirty because that's the nature of it. It's a tree sap that's from a tree in Asia, and so this is really this is in varnish, you know. So this is the pure form. It comes in a crystal from trees. I think European trees. I don't know why they're not in America, but so they come from Europe as well. So the basic, I'll tell you that the basic recipe is 7 or 8 parts of beeswax to 1 to 2 parts of DeMar varnish. And this pan is the one I use all the time. So, and what you want to do, I measure it, I weigh it to measure it. So you wouldn't want to use measuring cups. You need a more accurate weight measurement. You can vary that though, that recipe a little. However, if you get too much DeMar in it, it will, it's shiny, and it's what creates a bit of a shine, but it will crack if it's too much. It becomes too hardened. So it'll crack over time. Anyway, so I put it in a pan on my stove, and nobody else is allowed to be home because they don't want to be home. Because you just smell it. It smells nice, but then it smells like you're done smelling it. So it's strong. So there's about, you know, like I said, probably 2 parts. DeMar, and then I weigh maybe 8 ounces of beeswax. I start with the DeMar and I cook that till it's a liquid. It takes longer than the beeswax. The beeswax melts right away. This takes a while. So you put it in the pan, you stir it, and it just, until it's gooey. It's very sticky, very gooey. It's a varnish. And then, so when that's melted, you would add in your beeswax. So that's your medium. And I have a clear one here. I have that in pots too, because I use it, like I actually used it on top of this. This is not finished. This is a setup for an angel, but it has some gold. You see the gold in it. I like it. It's very shiny. But anyway, so what? Yeah. So this has I mean, you know, I'm just not that tidy, but this is a pure. You can see it looks like beeswax. It's much harder than that because this is a medium. So this will go, now I would take this, I didn't bring oil paint, but I would take this and I'd put probably that much oil paint, you know, like a finger-sized oil paint into this on average. Now I'll mess with this a bit and I will do a little more, and that's just by feel. Like I'll just do a little more paint if I wanted a little more intense, a little more opaque. And then, or a little less, if I wanted a little more translucent. Now you can see, you can't see from there, but it does settle. Like this is a little more translucent on the top, a little more, you know, it settles when it dries. So then you'd re-stir it a little bit. Let's see what else is out. Oh, you saw that one. Yeah, so these I have lots of these in this pan, all heating at like 200, 210. They're all liquid. And then I take a board, you know, that's already been encaustic gesso on it, and I taped it around, and then I just begin to lay on the medium, and I work in layers. And I sometimes, like I said, I know beforehand I'll want to lay that out, and then ideas, you know, but I started to with color, and I end up with color. But
you work light to dark, dark to light, does it all depend on what you're doing, or just layer?
Yeah, it all depends.
Whatever you feel.
I often do sky, in my head, I often think sky sea. You know, so it would be like, I have yellows and in the sky and darks blues or whatever, or red or blood in the sea, you know. So, I mean, but not always, and especially with these that I'm transferring on. Now, I intentionally, I think when I'm doing like faces or figures like this, I try to keep some light where I know I'm going to transfer the faces. You know, so I keep some things like that. And then, like in the, you know, I just put the gold on, the gold flecks. And yeah, so that's that. And then, so each layer though, and this is important about encaustic, you would do one layer, and really if you're working, you could cover this, you know, this has clear on it. And you might just do clear. You know, you don't have to, like I have that white on there, so I might just do clear, the clear medium, without the pigment in it. And so you'll get a coat on there, one coat. Now if you're working large, you're not going to get a whole coat because it starts to dry, you know, so you're just kind of working in sections. So one coat, and this is a heat gun. Dry hair. I'm just saying my color board glasses. I'm always working with heat. Yeah. So anyway. Okay. Yeah, if you have a question, or if you want me to just end, you tell me. So anyway, then, you know, I pretty much work with this on high, and then you can't see it. I'm going to try to show you without it running off. Where it starts to shine is it's fused. And when I say fused, it's got adhesion beneath it to the surface beneath it. So you're taking the heat really, I mean, to fuse it, which is the object of the heat gun or blowtorch. A lot of people work with a flame, the blowtorch. I prefer to work with what I feel like is a hairdryer in my hand, which is probably stupid, but so you fuse it, and you can also like smooth out, you'll see it smooth out a little bit, like some of the marks, if you don't want all that texture in there. I kind of like texture in the paintings, but now I'm going to pick it up quick. Oh no, watch it all run, because you know, that's the other thing, you can't work, you have to work on the horizontal, or it's going down, it's going south. So if you see any shine on this, that's all you need to do to fuse it. Now what I often do, and you see it in the larger seascapes more than this, is I will move it, I go beyond fusing it, and I'm moving the paint with the heat. So it's getting really quite hot, though you have to watch you can burn the surface beneath it, and it'll start to bubble and get messed up. All things can happen, but I move it. So it's for me. I paint with a brush, so I see the brush as a tool in creating a composition, and I see the heat as a tool in moving it. And so for me, it works in terms of water, in terms of, you know, a lot of the things that I'm sort of painting. So anyway, so that's every layer. Then I would put on another layer once that's fused, and I paint another layer on it. And then you fuse it again.
And it cools and hardens pretty quickly.
It does, just like that, you feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, yeah, it is.
Well, it feels waxy, yeah.
Yeah, it's still a little, you know, it's not cold yet, so the colder it gets, the harder it gets. And then also, when you're done with these, like when you're working on them, now you can't tell from there, but when you're working on them and you have a new one, they tend to look dull. But you can buff them. You can do it with, I think what works well is even the things you put your glasses with. But I think the back of your hand works well too. So it will shine it up. And I just think they're great like that. They tend to, you know, they tend to really show off the depth, the translucency, and the fact that it's kind of a different, like sometimes people think it's resin, you know, resin coated, but then when you look at it, you can tell it's not just on the surface, it's the paint itself. And so, you can add different things to it, like I said, and I use a lot of things. Carnauba wax is one of them. Carnauba wax, and Craftsman Supply, they sell that. I don't ever use it. I might have tried it one time. The thing about Carnauba, if you put too much in it, it adds a shine to it too. But I like the shine that you can get in the basic recipe. But that adds more of a shine, which is cool. It's, you know, very shiny.
It's what you put on your car when you're shining.
Oh.
Yeah, that's Carnauba wax. Yeah,
Wow.
So they are,
It's a natural wax too. I think it's like from a palm tree or something. So they're different, you know, natural waxes, but they do different things. That one shines, but if you add too much proportion of Carnauba, it will crack. So that's another of those things in additive. Now this, I just started trying a couple years ago, and I saw it at Craftsman Supply. It's luster wax. And I like this, and I'll add a little bit of this sometimes, and then this is a feel thing. Like, I don't add a whole lot of this to, like, I make my basic medium. And then in that medium, I'll add a little bit of this. Like, okay, I'm gonna just add a little more. But it's in my head, I'm like adding something else. Oh, and I just wanted to show you, and maybe you all work, or have worked with, oil bars, not an oil pastel. I think they're much more common. Years ago, they weren't common. They're different. They are an oil paint. An oil pastel is like a glorified crayon, which is fun, but it's not permanent. You know, it's gonna move, and you know what that is. But now, an oil bar, if you haven't worked with it, it's an oil paint in a stick form, and they're gorgeous. I mean, you know, to work with, they're just buttery, creamy. It's oil paint, and you're drawing with oil paint, and I like that. It works well with this medium. One thing you can do with this. And I'll just do it to make a mess. Now if I had a razor blade, of all things, I use razor blades all the time. I didn't bring a razor blade, but I'm gonna pretend my fingernail's a razor blade. And this is still a little soft too, from the heat, softer than normal, though I could mess up a finished surface, but not as easy as this. So you could do, let me see, I'll do a darker, you can do things like, you know, it's dry. This will be making a mess. Let me see. I mean, it has its film, so, and I don't have a paper towel. Too bad, I got it. Too bad for me. Now, if I have a paper, do you have a paper? Does anybody have a napkin or a Kleenex? Even a Kleenex. Oh, you think I have one? That makes sense. So what I just did is size the line there, and I, you know, rub this oil bar into it. What is the other one? I like RNF. This is RNF. Oh, thanks. Sorry, Jim. He'll be gone a long time. I don't know. Never mind, Jim. This is one of my favorite RNF paints. They make gorgeous oil bars, and they're also down at this big one for oh, yeah. So, and then so you see what I'm doing, I'm wiping off the excess, so you can do a whole drawing in this, you know, with a tool, with, you know, dental tools or razor blades, and then you can, you know, you have incised lines all over it, and then you can take oil bar into that, and that's, you can go crazy just with that technique alone. So there's a lot you can do with the medium. And so I think RNF is a wonderful brand that I like. And I know I mispronounced this again. It's a French name. It's a I don't know, but I've had this for years. But RNF it's really expensive too. A cheaper brand is Shiva. I like it. I think they're fine. They're not nearly the quality as RNF, just in terms of oil bars, but they're great. They're fine. And you have questions? I feel like I just like skirted over a lot of stuff.
Does like temperature and humidity affect when you work? Like if it's like a hot summer day and you're doing it, or?
Not so much when I work, but when anybody buys, that's interesting. Anybody buys it, it's the most interesting paper towel. If people like to hang encaustic art in your house, or it can take up to, like, 'cause people have shipped it, well, her brother ended up coming to get it, but, to Florida, I wouldn't ship there. Just because I don't know how long it's gonna be in a truck for. Not that it could make it, you know, on a reasonable truck. I mean, you just have to get a lot of insurance for what that truck is doing the whole way down. You know, so I'm sure there's certain shippers that will guarantee that. But actually, it can go up to 120 degrees in a house and be fine. So,
Wait a minute, what about the other directions?
oh, cold, that's,
Cold mixed,
and
wax crack.
it would, and the same, I don't know, the freezing temperature, it has to be really cold.
Really cold.
Yeah, so, and I always say to people, you know, it's the same as any art. You really shouldn't have art or people in 120 degrees. Or you shouldn't be making art in sunlight. You know, that it's just not, if you're paying for a work of art, you're hanging it up, you shouldn't have it in direct light. Or over a fireplace, but honestly, I can say that, and I've always had an encaustic painting over my but I don't have a gas one. I mean, I have a gas one, I don't have I think if you have a big log burning fireplace, you know, maybe you'd see, but still, yeah.
Your painting would end up on your mantle.
I think what would happen is you'd see what they call bloom. And that's, a new painting will do that too, and that's a wax thing. It gets a white, hazy, this looks like a bloom, but I think this is actually a lot of the coats of, heavy coat of the regular medium color. But it'll get a white, hazy dullness to it. And that's a new painting that's been created within the past 6 months, or maybe when it was in too high a temperature. That can be resolved if it, you know, comes out of that temperature, and then you buff it, and so you get it right up to shine again. But after 6 months, like, you know, a painting that's been kind of buffed, after 6 months, you shouldn't have it. It shouldn't bloom again, or get, you know, kind of cloudy while it's hanging on the wall. Yeah.
So when you put the oil pigment in there, do you have to wait a while for it to dry before you add more layers? You just kind of keep layering it on and let it dry itself?
You know what, I just layered it on.
Yeah.
If you were using heavy amount of oil, it might matter, but, because there's, like, I use the oil in the hot wax too, so it's kind of in that, but I think if you were doing like a heavy amount of oil, it would probably be a good idea for it to dry. But I continue to work right over the top of that.
So how long do you wait before you can like ship it out or before it's ready to be?
Yeah, I mean, you can see they dry really slow.
Okay, so you have
And so, and I'll do these, and then I have them in the gallery, and you know, they still would have the potential to bloom.
Okay.
And I might sell them like that, just to say it's a brand new painting, and you know what I'm used to, and I'm bad at this now, but I used to have a little how to care for an encaustic painting.
I was gonna say, I think it fell on the floor when you picked it up.
Oh, that might have been, I
saw
think
it
that was
fall.
just a tag, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I would have that, but I tell people, if it's new, I tell them, oh, I picked up something about it. There's animals down there. Yeah. Oh, I want to tell you that Firebox Art Studios, I just wanted to mention the gallery, so hope that you come. It's in Carnegie, and it's a women's art gallery, and you know, when I opened it, I didn't intend like, oh, and I do have men's work there, I should say. But I didn't step into it like, oh, I'm gonna have a women's art gallery, and it wasn't a sexist, you know, intention at all. But I work with women's groups outside of the gallery, and I do art. This just sounds crazy. It's like one of those things you have to talk about how you got there, but it's a wonderful thing. I do art with some prostitutes in Las Vegas, and also some women or young girls who've been sex trafficked, and so I tend to take women's teams and do art outreaches with more than women. I mean, I do it with orphans and in Guatemala, and do big art outreaches and things. But, so I work with a lot of women's groups, so it just seemed like when I opened the gallery, some of the smaller things benefit, like anti-trafficking and some groups that I know. So it just kind of like, you know, then I thought like, hey, you know, if you look at art history, it's like 99.9% of the fame and fortune is all men. So then I thought, wait a minute, don't be ashamed of having a women's focused gallery. But that being said, you know, I had the first show I had in there was a Potters for Peace exhibition. It was a big, in part of the Sika exhibit. Really wonderful, all guys pretty much. There was a few women, big pottery that were helping to benefit the production, or the production of water filters in countries that need a water filter. So these contributing potters had work in there, so that was primarily a men's show, and I have men's work in the gallery, but, and then I do a color pour that Helena and, she's just here for me. Sandy, yes, Sandra, yeah. They've been at the color pour. And, so, I mean, I won't do this downstairs because it's a little messy, but last year I did a lot of drawing and different things, but, you know, and I used to teach art in Philadelphia, but now having a gallery, I find that most people come into a gallery for a workshop are looking to do, something in and out and with wine. So, wait a minute, you know, so when I used to teach drawing, it was like layer upon layer, you know, which I love. I mean, the emphasis is you're working sequentially to grow and increase your abilities. But so, you know, one-shot deal doing a color pour, which I'm now repeating usually once a month, I think is great. It's a little bit of art history, a little bit of teaching about abstract expressionism, which I just think is wonderful for everybody to understand our culture a little bit in art and things. But it's fun, and it's also a process medium. You know what I mean? It's another medium that you kind of can't control, but you can find some beautiful sort of ways through it and working with it, and a little bit of color theory. So that class I repeat a good bit, and we have one coming up September 28th on Saturday. Cool. And yeah, we're always open for the crawl. My husband said, "Oh, bring stuff for the crawl." The Carnegie Crawl is fun. They're open the second Friday of every month, and now it's all year round. And you know, they have music in the streets. Often we have live music.
I've been there, it's fun.
Yay! Yeah, so that's a fun thing to come to. It's fun in Carnegie, but then it'd be fun if you come visit me at the gallery. I have some cards here, and if you want to look at any of this, looks like just a bunch of junk on the table. If you want to see it, then certainly come see it. And if you want to see this, come and see this. I think that's
Feel free to come on.
Thank you so much.